Hi, friends. Let me know we are here. Welcome, Instagram, welcome, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm here all by my lonesome. So just want to make sure we're live and we're good. Thank you, Teresa, for letting us know from YouTube. If anyone's on Facebook, I see Instagram hopping on. So thank you. We're talking about burnout today. Burn out. How many of you feel a little burned out just watching the news? I'll tell you, it's exhausting, isn't it? So we've got Facebook Live, we've got YouTube Live, we've got Instagram Live. Yay. I am the tech genius today, right? Not really. I have a great team, but thank you for showing up. So let's get going. Let's get rolling. I don't like to waste a lot of time. I know your time is valuable. My time is valuable. Before we get started, though, I just want to remind you, if you have not signed up for tomorrow's workshop, we are moving off of social media for tomorrow. We are moving onto a private spot, and we are going to be talking about a completely related topic called when you're not okay, I'm not okay, or I'm not okay when you're not okay. And this leads to burnout, doesn't it? Because the very definition of burnout is I'm not okay. And oftentimes burnout is a relational burnout. It's emotional exhaustion from trying to fix something that we can't fix or do something that we're not able to do completely. And so tomorrow we're going to expand that. You have a worksheet or a workbook. Actually, it's a couple sheets long to take notes. I'm going to be teaching on why you're not okay. Today we're going to talk about some solutions, and tomorrow we'll talk about much more solutions. But today, why am I not okay? Or tomorrow, why am I not okay when someone's not okay? And if you have not signed up for that workshop yet, I'm going to put a link in the chat underneath this topic so that you can sign up for it. And it'll be right below. Just sign up at leslievernick.com. We have over 5,000 people signed up to watch. And it's really important that you come and take care of yourself, just like you came today. The workshop will last about an hour, just like our Facebook Lives. So same time, tomorrow at noon Eastern time. So you're here, you can be there, but you can't get there if you don't sign up. So please go to leslievernick.com/join webinar. It's completely free. But we wanted to take this topic as we go deep off of social media so that you have full privacy to chat, to ask your questions. Myself and two coaches will be live for an hour or an hour and a half after the workshop to answer your questions. So that gives us much more time to interact in a more private space where you're not worried about your husband scrolling through your social media and seeing you asking me a question on something that you don't want him to know you're asking. So if that's you, please sign up for the workshop. I'm not okay when he's not okay, or maybe it's your mother-in-law, or maybe it's your adult child. And what's my problem? What's their problem? And what's our problem together? We're going to tease all that apart so you know exactly whose problem you need to work on. Today, you're here because maybe your problem is burnout. And I already defined it, but how would you define burnout? When you feel that burnout feeling like, I just can't do it. I just can't keep going this way. What would you describe as happening to you? How would you define burnout? I define it as emotional exhaustion. I am just completely depleted, not just physically, because sometimes you're physically depleted and you go to sleep and you feel fine the next day. What happens when you're burned out? It's not just physical depletion. So talk about what is burnout, because if we're going to figure out how to beat burnout, we've got to know what it is so that we can tell when we're starting to sink into burnout. Hi, everyone. So good to see you here. Someone's from South Africa. I'm impressed. Canada. All right. Teresa said, I can't move forward. Yeah, you're stuck. When you're in burnout, it feels like decreased hope, Megan says. Yes. So it's a little bit like depression, isn't it? All right. Burnout is somewhat, it's maybe not defined as a clinical depression because maybe you don't feel suicidal or those kind of things, but you do feel flatlined. You feel exhausted. You can't move forward. Yeah, Amanda said, that's how I felt yesterday. Couldn't get ready for church. Yeah, chronic discouragement, right? Emotional exhaustion. No hope on fixing it, right? You might have hope in the Lord and all those kind of things, but as far as whatever tasks you have to do in this earth, you feel pretty discouraged about that. Feel stuck and unable to move forward. Yeah. Okay, strategies for how to beat that is what we're going to talk about. Soul death. Soul death. I think this is really important. I love that you said that, Jeanette, because soul death really is, because we can't fix burnout unless we start looking at the whole person, not just our physical health or our emotional health, but our entire person. Anna says, done trying harder because it's not changing anything. Myrna says, your life feels like it's on pause. Yeah. Get sick and a lot of questions and confusion. Yeah. Okay. So you understand the feeling of burnout. So what are we doing here? What are some strategies to beat burnout? And I'm going to start by reading a passage of scripture that will help orient us toward the solution. So I'm going to read in the book of Philippians. And Paul's in prison. So you would think in prison would be a pretty burnout place, but Paul's not burned out at all. In fact, he's full of joy. He's full of peace. He's full of hope. So it's not our outward circumstances necessarily that continue our burnout, because Paul was in a place of great hardship and not fun. All right. But this is what he writes. Very first chapter of Philippians, starting in verse 9. He's praying for us. He's praying for you. I pray that your love will overflow more and more. We don't feel that in burnout. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing, not keep on giving. He's not saying that. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing in knowledge and understanding. That's why you're here. That's why you signed up for the workshop tomorrow, so that you can grow in your knowledge and understanding. For I want you to understand what really matters, so that you may live pure and blameless until the day of Christ's return. What really matters? Burnout is an opportunity for you to not only take care of yourself and your soul care, but to revise what really matters. Because what really matters is what brings life to our soul, not leads to burnout. But sometimes we're in the wrong track of what really matters. So what are some of the things that we do that cause burnout that we think really matters the most? And maybe it's not the most important. It's not that it's not important, but it's not the most important. Anybody have any ideas? Yeah. For me, Bethany, burnout is growing weary in well-doing. I love that you said that, because this is what we do well as women, don't we? We do well-doing. We want to love well. We want to help others. We want to care. And Paul isn't saying not to care, but he's not emphasizing that. He's saying, I want you to grow in your understanding and your knowledge and your love, but not in your giving. Interesting. He didn't say so that you can give more and more to others. He didn't say that. So that you will understand what matters most. Ashley says, I believe I have to earn rest instead of acknowledging my need. Okay, trying to do everything all of the time, Amanda says. Yes. So here's really important for you. Is God asking you to do that? So this is Ashley and Amanda are saying some really important things. Serena says, burnout is hitting my limit. All right. And that's a sign that you have limits, right? And you don't have to reach the end of them to know what your limits are. Like you don't have to pee your pants, ladies, to know that your limits in your bladder are limited, right? You can't hold your pee forever. And if you are peeing all over yourself all the time because you're not acknowledging your limits, that's not maturity, is it? That's childhood, right? And so part of maturity is knowing and understanding your limits so that you're not peeing all over yourself, so you're not embarrassing yourself, so that you're not harming yourself unintentionally by overfunctioning, by doing more than you should. What does limits mean to you? What does limits, that you have limits, does that discourage you or does that free you? You have limitations as a human being. How many of you can accept that? And how many of you resist that? We all have limitations. I just expressed one in our bladder. We have limitations. We have limitations. Can you accept that? Because if you can't accept that, then you are going to be prone to burnout. Yeah, Denise says it's very freeing. It's very freeing. Yes, I have limits. I have limits. No, Teresa's saying you don't accept that you have limits. All right, this is huge because if we're going to, excuse me, let me get some water. If we're going to beat burnout, step number one, we must live in truth. If Paul is saying we will grow in understanding and in knowledge, what really matters, we have to live in truth. We live in reality at all costs if we want to be healthy. Jesus lived in reality. His body limited him. He was God and he was human, and he had limitations. His body got tired. His body got hungry. He needed to take care of his body in order to do what he was supposed to do. He couldn't talk to everyone. He couldn't do everything. He didn't heal people by just saying, I declare the multitudes healed. I declare the multitudes fed. He didn't do it that way. He had limitations. He had to depend on God for the miracles. So if he had limitations and honored those and didn't burn out, don't you think the very first step of you having a strategy to beat burnout is for you to accept your human limitations? What does that mean to you? I know I have limits, but I don't know my limits. Yeah, I have more than the typical person. My body can't go with my brain. I have to set my boundary and honor it, even if someone else doesn't. I can't do it all. I'm finite. All right. So there's lots of different takes on this. You have a limited body. And who are you? I think let's go back to our identity statement. Because if we see who we are clearly, then we can honor our limits better. Who are you? Are you the savior of everyone's life? That burns us out, doesn't it? Are you the fixer of everyone's problem? That burns you out, doesn't it? Who are you? Let's get to the root of why you can't accept your limits. Yeah, why can't you? Why do you think you can't accept your limitations? People pleasing? Yeah. I'm going to just be general here. There's lots of nuance to this. But if we think about what really matters, that phrase that Paul used in Philippians, Oswald Chambers said this. He said, and I'm not going to quote him well because I'm having a brain blank here right when I said that because I didn't plan to say his quote. But he said, the enemy, here it goes, the enemy of the spiritual life is not sin, or the enemy of a life well lived is not sin. It's the good that is not good enough. In other words, the good has become the enemy of the best. The good has become an enemy of the best. And I think if Satan can't trick us into just fooling around and sinning our life away and wasting our life, he will trick us with good things that are not the best things. Saving your marriage, saving your husband, going all out to fix him feels like the right thing to do. It feels like a noble cause. Paul says we need to discern and have knowledge and understanding in our love to know what is best, because the good can become the enemy of the best. And now he's lost and you're burned out. Is that the solution? Because if you accept the truth, I am a limited, fallible human being, I can't fix him. I can't fix him. I can love him. I can speak the truth in love to him. I cannot fix him. I cannot change him. Jesus accepted those limitations. Even Jesus accepted those limitations. He didn't go chasing after Judas. He didn't go chasing after everybody who walked away from him. He didn't go chasing after the rich young ruler who said, don't think I want to do that. He loved him and let him go. What does that look like for you to accept your limitations? That you're just a human being and a amazing one at that. But here's your identity. Write this down. I am a beloved daughter of the Most High God. That's who I am. And if that's true, how do I steward me? If I'm a daughter of God, then I'm dependent on Him. I'm not self-sufficient. I have limits. I'm a daughter. I'm a human being. I'm not God. I think burnout comes when we think we can be God, that we can save someone, we can fix someone, we can go the extra mile and rescue them. And if you can help someone, help them if they want to be helped. I'm not saying don't be nice and kind. I'm not saying that at all. But when you are spinning your wheels trying to help someone who's not helping themselves, it's like trying to save a drowning person. And maybe you're a good swimmer, but they're beating you over the head with their fists and they're wrestling against you and you're both going under. What do? You have to let go or you're both going to go under, even if you're a good swimmer. And this is what happens in so many Christian women's lives is they sacrifice the best of who they are. My friend Lisa Turkhurst says this. They sacrifice the best of who they are. And I add to enable the worst in someone else. Why would you do that? Why would you let yourself drown when someone else is pushing your head under because they don't want to be fixed? Why would you let yourself? You're a beloved daughter. That's who you are. You might have the role of wife. You might love your husband. You might love your adult child. I hope you do. God calls you to. Paul calls you to. But does loving them mean that you can fix them, change them, save them from their own foolishness? If you're a mom, raise your hand. How many of you have tried to save your child from their own foolishness and they end up learning the hard way because they didn't want to listen? And some kids don't learn the hard way. And you keep praying someday they will learn the hard way. But if you see your identity not as a beloved daughter, but as you see yourself as, oh, I've got to do this. It's my fault. It's my problem. I've got to fix their problem. It's my problem. Your problem is that you're a wreck because they have a problem, right? I get that. My kids have had their share of issues that I've been a wreck over. Whose problem can I fix? Their problem or mine? I'm a wreck over their problem. Can I fix their problem or can I work on mine? Whose problem am I most likely to have success in fixing if you have an adult child? Yeah, yours. We're going to unpack all that for you tomorrow. So the first step in burnout is live in truth. I am a beloved daughter. I'm a limited human being. I can't fix it all. I can't do it all. I can't solve it all. I don't know it all. I was at a retreat with Lisa a couple of weeks ago, her Haven House retreat, which is excellent. And we were talking to the women about guilt, and a lot of them felt really guilty and burnt out in my small group. And we were talking about the origin of guilt. And you know what the number one origin of guilt was among these women who were so depleted and burnt out that they wanted to come to a weekend intensive retreat to help themselves? The guilt was because of the shoulds. I should be better than I am. I should be more perfect. I should be able to fix this. I should know what to do. I shouldn't have married him. All these shoulds, they were shoulding on themselves because they didn't accept their limitations. I don't know everything. I can't do everything. But I should have no. How would you know? You see, once you can accept your limitations, and I'm just a daughter dependent on God, and I don't know everything, it's freeing. You don't have to feel guilty over not knowing. You don't know, right? So beat burnout. Accept your limitations. Accept the truth of who you are. I am a beloved daughter. I'm not God. I'm not the savior of everybody. I can't fix everybody. I don't know everything. Whew, what a relief. I don't have to get all emotionally guilty or shamed or like I've got to solve this problem when it's not my problem, but I'm being affected by it. I can solve that. I can't solve that. Does that make sense? Second thing is really begin to nurture compassion and care toward yourself, not just others. The Bible says in Philippians, same book that I just read out of in chapter 2, do not merely look out for your own interests, but also for the interests of others. But let's look at the first part of that phrase. It doesn't say you're selfish for looking out for your interests, only look out for the interests of others. That's not what it says. It says it assumes that we will look out for our own interests. You need sleep. You need to take care of yourself. You may need therapy. You may need some things to help you get unstuck from burnout. It's okay. Don't only look out for your own interest, care for the interests of others, but doesn't mean ignore your interest, sacrifice your interest, and only care about the interests of others, which is what Christian women have been taught since I was in church. Like I was selfish if I wouldn't watch a movie at night with my husband and said, no, I'm going to bed, I'm tired. If he's having a heart attack, I'm going to sacrifice my sleep for sure. Call ambulance, stay with him. But to watch a movie? No, I'm going to sleep. That's not selfish. That's stewardship of me. And I can look out for my own interests so that I can show up the next day as the woman I want to show up at, not as a cranky, sleepless woman who's cranky because she didn't get enough sleep, because she didn't take care of herself. Right? I have limitations. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. There's no shame in that, no guilt in that. There's freedom in humility. And embrace it, ladies. Embrace the truth. You're human. Embrace the truth. I'm limited. I have compassion on my limitations. I can't fix you. I love you. I feel bad for you. I can't fix you. And if you don't want to get fixed, I may have to have better boundaries with you because I also don't trust you or I don't feel safe with you, even if I love you. How many of you can love an adult child and you can understand this? Love my adult child, but they're in drugs and they're stealing from my house and I can't let them live here. I can't fix their problem. I can pray for them, but I can't and shouldn't let them live in my house and steal from us and buy them drugs with my retirement money and think that's love. That's not love. That's fear. If I don't do that, they'll be mad at me. And now my whole identity is based on what they think of me and whether they love me, not on I am a beloved daughter of God. Do you see how our mindset leads to burnout? What we think of ourselves, what we think about what our role is, and how we live our life. Yeah. This is important to practice with our friends too. You're right, Christina. I find that I apologize when wanting to care for myself. Yeah, that's an important aha moment for you, Free. Free to be me, and yet you're not free, are you? So I would really encourage you to give yourself that self-compassion that, you see, you don't feel angry with yourself when you accept your limitations. Like I'm not angry with myself when I say, you know what, I got to go to the bathroom. I'm not like, what's wrong with me? Like last night, I ate something at Super Bowl party and I didn't agree with me. And I'm like in the bathroom half the night. And I'm like, I didn't feel guilty about that. I just felt like, ugh, I got to take care of me right now. I can't sit and watch Super Bowl. I got to go take care of me. Right. And although it wasn't as fun as being with the group eating all the stuff that we were eating, obviously it didn't agree with me, but I'm going to take care of me. And I needed to take, and that's not, I don't feel guilty for that. Understand you're limited. You've got to prioritize what you have to prioritize. All right. Slowing down. How many of you believe the lie, and it's nowhere in the Bible, that you are going to get more crowns the more you produce, the more that you do? How many of you, here's my checklist for the day. How many of you feel really good? Like, oh, if I get all those checks done, I'm going to be like, great. And then you do it with a crabby spirit and an exhausted countenance because people are in your way and you can't get it all done. And if you get it all done, like, oh, had a good day. I'm valuable. I'm worthwhile. I'm productive. God doesn't have any of that. Like, if you get it all done, you're going to get a better crown. So I would encourage you, if you want to beat burnout, you have to slow down. You have to live in reality. You have to show compassion towards yourself, soul care, and slow down so that you can pay attention to your soul. So I'm going to give you, I can't do it with you, but I want you to do it in your imagination. How many of you have ever taken a handful of chocolate? I like to eat like Raisinets, or a handful of chocolate chips, or a handful of some pieces of chocolate, and just throw them in your mouth. How many would raise their hand and say they do that? I do that. I love to just take a handful of chocolate, just grab it in my mouth, right? Or even a piece of chocolate, put it in my mouth, and then I chew it and swallow. I would love for you to practice this today. I want you to take one Raisinette, or one nut, or one chocolate chip, and put it in your mouth and make it last as long as possible. And I want you to notice what you never noticed before: the texture, the smell, the creaminess on your tongue, how it comes through and you can smell it, how it feels. So many of us live our lives at warp speed that we never notice how wonderful something small can be, like a little chocolate chip or a little Raisinette. We don't notice because we're too busy doing. And I think that God wants us to notice. He doesn't want us just to live our life to produce. He wants us to live our life. To live our life. And when you're emotionally exhausted, you don't feel like living your life. You just feel like crawling up in a little blanket and going to bed. And so if you intentionally slow down and just wash your dishes, instead of trying to get them done as fast as possible so you can move on to the next task, I want you to slow down and notice how the soap feels on your hands. Notice how it feels good to get that dish all squeaky clean before you put it in the dishwasher, if that's how you do things, which I do. Notice how it feels to dry all your silverware, put it in the sink so it doesn't have spots on it, and your sink looks nice and clean, and you're doing it slowly, and you're just enjoying that task instead of getting through the task to the next task. These 3 things will help you to beat burnout. Tomorrow at the workshop, I'm going to go through a whole lot more strategies on what you need to do long-term. These are just 3 short-term things that I'm not talking. We will be talking quite a bit about truth. Because if you live in the lies that I am what he says I am, he says I'm a loser. He says I'm ugly. He says I'm not a good wife. He says I'm not a good Christian. If you live in their reality, you're not only going to be burned out, you're going to be unhealthy. Or if you live in false reality, like I am better as a person if I'm productive and I'm more worthy. God thinks I'm more worthy if I do more. Really? Jesus said it was finished, and he didn't live in the internet world where everybody heard about him all at one time. He just went from person to person to person. If he thought how much you accomplished was worth more, he would have waited till now, because he could have been broadcast all over the world at the same time. 3 years, he didn't talk to half the people that were there. And yet, he said, it is finished. I'm done. I did what I was supposed to do. So I would really encourage you to not live by other people's words, not define yourself by other people's words. You're stupid. You can't. You're not good enough. God's going to be mad at you. You have to figure that out for yourself. That's that soul care. So living in truth and reality sets you free, Jesus says, even if it's hard truth. We're going to talk about how to do that tomorrow. We're also going to give you 3 other steps that will really help you not only avoid burnout, but understand that when you're even not burnt out yet, but you're in the pattern leading to burnout. I'm not okay when he's not okay. I'm stressed out when he's not okay. I'm anxious when he's not okay. I'm irritable when he's not okay. I'm, frantically trying to please him so he'll be okay. Is that how you want to live your one precious life? I hope not, because now he's become your God. He decides for you who you can be and how you can behave. Why would you let another human being be your God? He's limited, fallible, just like you. Why would you let him or another fallible human being define you? My mother defined me in ugly ways I'll talk about tomorrow. That wasn't who I am, but I had to get those voices out of my head for sure. That was my work to do. But just because someone says you're not worth it or you're not okay, does that make them the word of God and the word of truth? No. But if you believe it, then you're letting yourself be dependent on a fallible human being. And God says the only one you're dependent on is me for your identity. And I'm telling you, you are my beloved daughter. You are my workmanship in Ephesians 2. That who has begun a good work in you will complete it. If you do what he said in Philippians, you grow in your love and understanding and knowledge so that you will be able to discern what is best. So we're going to unpack some more of that for you tomorrow. So if you haven't signed up for the workshop is, let me put the banner up so you know the title. Let's see if I can do this and talk at the same time. I'm not good at that. I'm not okay when you're not okay. And the URL to sign up for it is leslievernick.com/join webinar, all one word, join webinar. So it's just my website, leslievernick.com/join webinar. And you will get a link to join tomorrow at noon, same time we're on this. We'll be on a webinar jam, which is a completely different site. And we'll also be doing it at 7:30 p.m. So if you can't make a noon time tomorrow, sign up for the 7:30 p.m. And please make every effort to be present. Your experience will be very different being present than it will be just watching the replay. All right, I want to open this up to questions. If you have any questions, if you can either put it in the chat or on Instagram, if you would like to ask a question, you can go to leslievernick.com/question/, and my staff will pick up that question. And if we have time, we would love to answer that as well for you on Instagram. All right, here's the first question. How can I regain the respect of my adult children who believe their father's lies that I committed adultery when I married a true Christian man after my narcissistic, unbelieving ex emotionally abused and filed for divorce against me? I think you can't control whether someone respects you. I mean, Jesus was treated with disrespect, and he was the Son of God. He was even treated disrespectfully by his own family. If you look in the book of Luke, for example, can't remember exactly what chapters, probably around chapter 7 or 8, it said his family wanted to take him away because they said he was out of his mind. All right, so yeah, his family wasn't treating him respectfully. So you can't make someone respect you. The best thing that you can do is tell them the truth and say, hey, I understand. So show empathy and compassion. Your dad told you some things about me, and you get to decide who you're going to believe or what you're going to believe. But the truth is, I did not cheat on your father. So you can be honorable, you can be respectable, you can treat them with respect. These are the things that you can do on your side of the street. You cannot change their heart. You cannot make them believe you. You cannot make them respect you. Some adult children don't respect their parents because they're not good kids. All right. Now, again, you can blame yourself. Oh, what did I do wrong? Why didn't I raise respectable kids? You can do some self-reflection if that would help you. But each person decides for themselves how they're going to be. Right. So when you might, my mom wasn't a terrible mom. She was an abusive mom. All right. I didn't want to be disrespectful to her. I wasn't going to enable her, but I didn't want to be disrespectful to her. So she didn't cause me to be disrespectful. She didn't cause me to be respectful. I decided that. And so your kids are going to have to make a decision on how they want to show up and how they want to interact with you. And I think this is something that as moms, we can teach our kids, hey, I don't want to be talked to that way, or I'm not going to listen to you when you talk to me that way as they grow up, so they understand that we don't get to have a relationship with our mom if we treat her disrespectfully, because you honor yourself, even if they don't. Right? And I think this is really true for wives as well. This is not a expose on Emerson Eggert's book, Love and Respect. I'll just say this. Women need respect too. And you cannot love someone and disrespect them. So enough said on that book, but you can't make your kids respect you, but you can invite them to by telling them the truth, show compassion for the confusion that they must feel and experience, and live your life as best you can before the Lord and let your kids watch you. And hopefully they'll come around. Okay. I'm a 44-year-old woman still living with my parents. I have quite an enmeshed relationship with my mom. I've experienced emotional abuse from her. How do I set healthy emotional boundaries with her? As I speak for myself, she's critical of me. I have never felt good enough. I think if I were your counselor at the moment, I would say, why are you still living with your mom at 44 years old? That might be one boundary that you could set, that you should set by now, right? So I have quite an enmeshed relationship with my mom. You have to take responsibility for your side of that enmeshment and get healthier. And maybe you're not healthy enough to move out. And so I think it's not about changing your mom. It's about, because even if you set boundaries with your mom, if you're still living there, she may violate those boundaries. So if you closed your door and you said, Mom, I don't want you to go in my room while I'm at work. It's my boundary. And maybe you even lock the door. That's a stronger boundary. She might go in because it's her house. And then you're feeling you're feeling victimized by her. But maybe the boundary is that I need to have my own space that she doesn't have access to. But since I'm still dependent on her to provide me a living space, the boundaries feel a little different that way. So you don't have total control or total say. But one thing you can do while you're living with someone, like if you're a married person, you're living with someone, you can say, I won't have this conversation this way. I'd love to. I used to say this to my adult children, not my adult children. My adult children don't do this anymore, but my teenage children. I used to say to them when they were teenagers, I can't hear you when you talk to me that way. Or I won't have a conversation with you when you talk to me that way. I'll have a conversation with you when you can talk to me in a respectful conversation way. But when you start accusing, attacking, maligning, arguing for no reason, I'm not going to have that conversation. So I could control that side of the street. I'm not engaging. I can't control what she says, or I can't control what they do. I can control my side. I'm leaving. I'm going to my room. I'm locking the door. Make sure you have a lock on your door, at least from the inside, right? But if you then can't do that because you feel guilty and I feel scared and I feel like I'm hurting her that's your work to do. And we'll talk a lot about that tomorrow. So her problem is she hasn't raised you to be an independent. We talked about this a couple of days ago in a Facebook Live. What's the job of a good mom? The job of a good mom is to teach your kids not to need you. So apparently your mom hasn't done that because she needs you to need her, right? She needs you to need her. And sometimes we we function in these codependent, unhealthy relationship styles that are lose-lose for everybody. So we don't want to teach our kids to need us forever. We want to teach them to not need us so they can be functional, healthy adults. So your job right now is to say, my mom didn't teach me that. So now I got to learn how to do that. I've got to learn how to be a healthy, functional adult on my own. And whether you need some personal one-on-one coaching or counseling to help you do that, I would say that would be a start for you. I have never felt good enough because she's needed you to feel not good enough so that she can control your life. And that's what abusive people do, even if they don't do it intentionally. If your husband is controlling you and you're letting him, it's because he needs you to be dependent on him so he can be God and you can be the underling. It's an unbalanced, unhealthy relationship pattern. And when we get involved in that as Christians, we think, oh, but I'm supposed to honor my mom, or oh, I'm supposed to submit to my husband. And we get in these unhealthy patterns because we've been spiritually taught incorrect things like the love and respect thing. Or I'm not saying we shouldn't love and respect. We should, but they go together. You cannot love someone you treat disrespectfully. It just doesn't go together at all. So it's not women need love and men need respect. We both need both to have a healthy relationship with someone. So I hope that helps you. How do I set emotional boundaries with her? I won't engage in this conversation. Another boundary was another boundary is, hey, I'm going to start learning to be more independent. That's going to upset your mom because she needs you to need her, right? She needs you to need her for her to be okay. And this is what we'll talk a lot about tomorrow in the workshop. So how do I define her problem? Her problem is she's unhealthy and she needs you to need her in order for her to be okay, or she would have raised you different. And what's your problem? I'm letting her keep me dependent and small. And I keep letting her tell me who I am instead of me growing up and deciding who I am and listening to God who I am so I can work on my problem. I can't work on her problem, right? Her problem is hers to solve, but you've got to work on your problem and understand that when you work on your problem, you're going to upset the apple cart because if she needs you to need her in order for her to be okay, then once you don't need her anymore, you can love her, but you don't need her, which is what an adult child should be. I love my mom. I don't need her to take care of me anymore. I can take care of myself. That's the definition of an adult, right? Then she may have to do some work as, wow, what does an adult relationship look like with a healthy daughter? Maybe that will motivate her to get healthy. But as long as you both stay in the cycle, you both stay in a lose-lose relationship. And this would be true of marriage as well, which we'll talk about specifically tomorrow in the webinar, in the workshop, okay? So that when you stay unhealthy and he stays unhealthy, you're both unhealthy in a lose-lose cycle, and your marriage is never going to get any better. When you try to make him healthy, that's not working. Just like if you try to make your mother healthy, that's not working. You have no control over making your mother healthy. So take charge of you and start getting healthy. And we'll unpack all that tomorrow in the workshop, and you'll have paper handouts that give you sort of the outline, which will be easier for you to follow. So please sign up for the workshop tomorrow at leslievernick.com/join webinar. And it will be a webinar with slides so that you can take pictures of the slides. You'll have a workbook to fill in the blank. So you will be equipped to know what you need to do for your next steps. And it's entirely free. It's entirely free. I want you to have this. We do coaching groups afterwards. If you want some additional help, we will do that. But with 5,000 women, we only have spots for 200 women. So there's no way we can even accept you in our groups for most of you. So that's why we do it for free. We want to help as many people as possible get the information. And if you want some extra help with that, then you can join one of our groups afterwards. All right. All right. And I'll answer the next question here. What if your spouse is gaslighting? How can you separate what's true from what's false? Well, that is your responsibility, isn't it? So that just like watching the news is gaslighting us as well. And so we have to decide which people we trust, what we believe, who we listen to. Maybe we need to dig a little deeper. And so understand your husband's gaslighting you. So I would do two things to help your own mental health. I would write down the facts of what has happened, what has been agreed to, what has been said. So for example, he agreed to pick up the kids after school. As soon as he agrees to do that, I would put that in my phone. He's agreed to pick up the kids on Tuesday at 4:00, right? I would even, maybe if I were bold, I might say to him, you know what? We've had so many arguments about these kind of things. I'm going to go write this down. So now he knows when he comes back, I didn't say that. I told you maybe, and I told you I'd call you if I actually could. And you're like, am I losing my mind? No, you wrote it down right when it happened, exactly how it happened, so that you're not, so you can't stop him from gaslighting, but you can stop you from feeling nuts. I remember working with a client who would gaslight me a lot about different things that happened in the sessions. And so I began just writing down while we were talking in the sessions, different things that she would say, or different things that would happen, or different things that I would say, like, I will do this, I won't do that. And she'd say, but you said you would. And I'd say, no, I never said. Oh, yes, you did. I remember exactly. You said, and I'm like, and then I'd start to feel like, wow, did I say that? I don't remember. So I just started writing everything down, not to convince her, like, look, I wrote it down. You said, I'm not going to convince a gaslighter because they'll just keep spinning. But what I am going to do by writing it down is I'm going to save my own sanity, right? I can't fix them. That's what they do. They love creating confusion. The Bible talks about people like that. My responsibility is to have truth in my mind. I'm going to be courageously committed to the truth at all costs. So that means I might have to just take some time and write down what they say, or what we agreed to, what we argued about, right? What you said you'd spend, what you said you took out of the Mac, all of the things that he gaslights you about, whatever that is, right? What's on the credit card? I might have to do some research. I might have to do a credit check, all of those kind of things to get the hard facts so that I can stay in truth. I'm courageously committed to truth above all costs, including finding out my husband's a big old liar. And sometimes we don't want to. It's sort of like finding a lump on your breast. That's scary. And we can go into, oh, it's probably nothing. I'll be fine. Or we can be courageously committed to truth at all costs. And we go to the doctor and get a mammogram, or we get a biopsy, or whatever we need to do. And the news might be bad. The truth might be ugly. But we can't get healthy if we don't face the truth. So that would be my encouragement to you. If your husband looks at naked photos of other women off a porn site and stores them on his phone so he wants to look at them again, would you consider this a form of adultery? He doesn't. It doesn't matter if he doesn't. Do you? And it doesn't matter if I do or don't. Do you? Do you consider this a form of adultery? Jessica, Jessica's my helper. If you have time, I wrote a blog recently about porn and adultery or a newsletter. I can't remember if it was a blog or a newsletter, is porn adultery. If you could find that link and post it in the chat, that'd be really helpful for those who, I think it is. But Jesus says it is. Jesus says it is. If you look at a woman with lust in your heart, you've committed adultery in your heart, right? He upped the standard. It's not just Bill Clinton, I didn't put my penis in her vagina, so I didn't commit adultery. Yes, he committed adultery. Because adultery, if you look at the overall word in the scripture, even God says to Israel, Israel, you committed adultery against me. Well, what does that mean? It means you're unfaithful. You're unfaithful. You're unfaithful to your vows. So if he's promising you, I'm going to cherish you, love you, honor you above all else in the marriage vows, and he's storing pictures on his phone of naked women, he's dishonoring you, he's dishonoring himself, he's dishonoring his vows. He is unfaithful. That's my take. But you have to decide. And he doesn't have to agree with you for you to decide. Just like Bill Clinton said, I didn't commit adultery. He had oral sex with a woman, but I didn't commit adultery, right? I mean, let's not split hairs. You committed adultery. You were with another woman, whether it's in your mind, whether it's in your mouth, whether it's wherever, right? That's adultery in God's eyes, I believe. I don't believe God is saying, well, that's not really it. It's adultery. It's unfaithfulness. But you decide, because you're the one who has to live with the consequences. And I think this is really, really important, ladies. This is what I teach. I want women to grow up and think for themselves, right? I think that we have been infantilized as women in the church. Like, you just let your pastor decide. You just let your husband decide. They know better, dear. No, the Holy Spirit is in you. God in John chapter 14 says he has put the Holy Spirit inside of you, and he will guide you in all truth. There is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. So hang out with me, hang out with good pastors, hang out with other people. Listen. But the bottom line is, you are responsible for your life and your well-being. And so you have to decide what is truth and be courageously committed to that. And the Holy Spirit, and God, Jesus says the Holy Spirit will guide you in the truth. And whether someone else says it's not true or they don't agree with you, that's not the issue. You decide. You don't need their approval in order for you to think what you think. And this is so important, ladies, because so often we're approval junkies. And I want everybody to agree with me in order for me to be okay. Well, how's that working? Not everybody's going to agree with you. So if your well-being is completely dependent on everybody agreeing with you, you're going to always be like a wave tossed in the sea, to and fro. I'm liked, I'm not liked, I'm liked, I'm not liked, depending on who's agreeing with me. You need to stand for what you think is right and what is true. And the only one you're really going to answer for is to the Lord about that. All right. I realize my soon-to-be ex has ADHD and likely Asperger's. I've offered him treatment options. He was not interested. I am okay divorcing because I don't want to live in this environment. But there's guilt that I don't want to stay in a caretaker role, which causes extreme burnout. What should I tell myself? Am I abandoning him in sickness? Well, I think you're exaggerating. So if you said to me your husband has had end-stage renal failure and is, in a coma, I might have a different answer. But ADHD and Asperger's people, they function pretty well if they're high-functioning people. They're relationally deficient for sure, but some of them are executives, they have doctors, they have high-paying jobs. He is not dysfunctional in his ability to earn a living or take care of himself. He's dysfunctional in his ability to have a relationship, a close relationship, an honest relationship, and to regulate himself emotionally. And he's refusing treatment for that, right? Which is not part of the illness. It's part of his character, his pride, his selfishness, his, I'm God, I don't need help, whatever it is, his deceit. And so I think you have to decide, if someone is drowning and they're not willing to receive your help to get to shore, and they're actually harming you in the process, is it wrong to let go? Is it wrong to let go? Especially if the person does know how to swim, right? And so I think this is really important, that we understand that Jesus let Judas go. He even let Judas hang himself. Right? He didn't feel guilty, like, oh, I should have walked with him over there and tried to convince him and kept him from going. And he didn't. Judas was an adult. Your husband is an adult. He's made his decisions. I don't want help. I don't care how this impacts you. You see, when you're in a marriage with someone and you have a disability, let's say I got paralyzed in a car accident and I'm in a wheelchair, right? A healthy person would say, wow, this sucks for you. It sucks for me and it sucks for you. I'm sorry that this impacts you. How do we make this work as a win-win? I still want you to go do things you want to do that I'm not going to be able to do anymore. So go join a mountain climbing club or whatever that I can't do anymore if we used to do those things together. So you're compassionate and you're caring for the impact that it's caused, but you still are caring for the person that's also injured. But your husband is not caring about the impact it's caused you at all. And he's not willing to acknowledge that it does have an impact. But you are, as you should. It's having an impact on me. And I don't have to be a caregiver of another adult person who's perfectly capable of caring for themselves. If they have Asperger's or ADHD, it does not make them incapable of caring for themselves. There's plenty of people out there who have high-powered jobs who have Asperger's or ADHD, and some have both, and are doing just fine, living by themselves. They might live in a mess. They might have a hoarder problem. They might have other issues, but they're happy. They're functioning in the way they want to function, and they get to decide that. So you have to know what the details of your circumstances are there, but I don't think abandoning in sickness is the right word for this. Okay? My husband has what time is it? I'm going to have to cut in 7 minutes because Instagram has a tight 1 hour limit here. My husband has a very angry, harsh tone a lot when he speaks to me. How do I deal with this when he's not gotten better 2 years later? I had sympathy when we were first married with all he's gone through, but in time it isn't better. And I'm feeling I'm getting more bitter and harsh myself. Yeah, you're not okay when he's not okay. So first, highly encourage you to come to the workshop tomorrow. I think you'll get a lot more tools than I can give you in this 2-minute answer, 1 minute answer. But I do think that you need to have a boundary. And the boundary is this: hey, I've talked to you about your harsh tone before, and it's hurting our relationship because I'm starting to feel afraid of having any conversation with you. And I don't think that's good for a long-term marriage. I'm starting not to like you when you act so mean. And I don't want to feel angry or bitter toward you. You're my husband. And so when you start up, I'm going to give you a chance to regroup. And I'm not having a conversation with you that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I see you're upset and I can't have a good conversation with you when you're that way. I'm going to go in the bedroom and read my book, or whatever you're going to do until you can calm down. So you're giving him the responsibility to manage his emotions so that he can have a conversation with you that you can engage in. I would not let him vomit on you anymore. You can't stop him from vomiting. You can stop him from vomiting on you. Okay? And you need a boundary about that. So I would figure that out and implement it real quick. Now I gave you a gentle boundary there. If it becomes harsh, it may be I separate from you because I won't live like this. I feel guilty for calling out my unrepentant husband's fault. He always turns it around by saying, nothing I do is ever good enough, or you only see the bad and not the good. But I'm not accusing or attacking him. I only try to engage in conversation where I express how I feel and what I experience. But it feels like I'm not okay if he's misunderstanding me. Can you coach me on this topic a little bit? Yeah. We'll talk about this a lot tomorrow. So this is really a good question. Look at my time. So one of the mistakes that you're making, and this is, I'm courageously committed to reality. We talked about that as a component of burnout, but it's also a component of healthy people, right? So you are believing a lie that's catching you in this snag. And we'll unpack this a lot tomorrow, but I'll just give you the hint. Cliff notes. The lie that you're believing is I need, with a capital Need, him to be okay with my statement. And if he's not, then I'm not. If he's misunderstanding me, then I can't stand if he misunderstands me. Right? I need him to not misunderstand me in order for me to be okay. So now you're putting your entire well-being, your okayness, in his hands. Because if he misunderstands you, then you're not okay. Can you be okay if someone misunderstands you? Like, it's unpleasant for sure, but can you be okay? Can you be okay, especially if they don't want to understand you, right? They don't want to understand you. They want to blame you. They want to accuse you. They want to attack you for attacking them, right? That's what it feels like to them. So they're going to attack you back. All right. So first step, I don't need him. You're going to have to come to a place. What do you need to do to work on it? I don't need him to understand in order for me to be okay. I can accept that he's going to misunderstand me. Second, maybe your husband's saying to you, I don't really want you to call out my faults. And is it your job to call out someone's faults who doesn't want to know their faults? You see, people call out your faults when you're inviting them to call out your faults. Hey, hold me accountable if you don't see me exercising because I really want to exercise, or hold me accountable for my temper because I want to get rid of this temper. And if you see me raising my voice, call me. But I would not want to live with someone who called out my faults every day. So I'm just going to be on your husband's side for just a second. So we all have faults. We all have them. I would not want to live with someone who said, hey, you're being a little impatient right now, or hey, you left your butter out of the fridge, or hey, you didn't put the milk away, or hey, you didn't make your bed today. It's like, whoa, no one wants to live like that where you're being criticized all the time. So I don't know what balance of that you're using, but I think that when his faults impact you, then it might be, hey, when you leave the milk out and I want to drink cold milk and it's warm and now I have to throw it away and that costs $5, that really bothers me. So now he's understanding the impact versus just this is your fault. And I don't want to keep spending money on new milk when you can just put the milk in the fridge. That bothers me. So those kind of statements might be more helpful. But I do think that we have to be careful that we're not criticizing our spouse or someone's not criticizing us constantly. Nobody can live like that peaceably. However, we are our husband's helpmate. And so when they're doing something that's destructive to them or to our marriage, not every little fault, some things we just have to forbear. I've been married almost 50 years now. And there's just things you just live with, right? You don't, and I want him to live with me too. I'm not going to change at this age. And so these are little faults that we have, whether you don't clean out your sink every day or whatever it is. But when there's relational hits, yes, those are the things. Or when someone's doing something that is really harmful to themselves. But even in that, you're drinking too much, how many times can you say that and someone's get off my back? It's not your responsibility to manage my drinking. Right? Now, how his drinking impacts you, that is your responsibility to manage. And we'll talk about some more of that tomorrow, okay? So we are at the top of the hour, and I didn't finish all of the questions, but I think we've covered most of the themes of all of the question. And tomorrow, if you show up at the workshop, you can just retype these questions into the workshop chat, and we will answer as many questions as we can. Sometimes we get hundreds of questions, so we can't answer them all in an hour and a half or two, but we do a whole hour, if not 2 hours, of just Q&A, so that it's not just 20 minutes. It's a long time. So if it's not your question, somebody will ask a question that's very similar to yours and get the help that you need. So I hope that you are registered for our workshop. Thank you so much for being with me in this hour. It's been my pleasure to help you think about your own soul care, your own one precious life. God has created you for purpose. You're not just a role or a robot or an object to use. If you're a wife or you're a mom, those are great privileges, but that's not who you are. It's your role, a temporary role, actually. Who are you is something you get to decide. Are you going to be a woman of valor? Are you going to be a woman of strength and dignity? Or are you going to be a woman who lives afraid, who lives small because you're afraid of criticism, you're afraid of disapproval, you're afraid of someone not liking it, you're afraid of rejection? Well, you get to decide that. But I'm just bringing this to the surface so that you make a conscious decision, because many of us just live in default mode. We don't even think about it. So I hope you think about it, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have regrets. So I will see you tomorrow at the workshop. I'm not okay when you're not okay. What do I do about myself? All right. Take care. God bless.